still. I'll not forget that day when Mother Nature cried in Redwood Hill. No, I'll not forget that day when Mother Nature cried in Redwood Hill.
Well, that song is very special to us. Bruce, did you happen to bring a letter? Last year we read a letter that Gord had written after an experience that he had with us in San Francisco.
I just happen to have it here with me. No, I'll tell you what, I was going to read this before we played that last song. Only my dumbass brothers started the song before I could.
I was wallowing in that introduction.
This is what Gord wrote. He was gonna, on our very first album back in 1970, 71, we were in a group called James and the Good Brothers with a friend of ours from Winnipeg named James Aykroyd. And we were in San Francisco. We had just performed across Canada on a train called the Festival Express. And we were down in San Francisco recuperating, and yeah, right, recuperating in San Francisco with the Grateful Dead. Yeah, anyway, we were down there for a month. We made our first album, a month and a half or so, and in the middle of it, Gord came down to visit us, and he and Ramblin' Jack Elliott came down, and we drove up north, up into the Redwood Hills, and that's where that song came from, actually. And this is the beginning of some liner notes that Gord was going to write for us. Never made it on the album, but that's okay. It says, "News from Fort Bragg." Now, we went up there to visit a group called Cat Mother and the All-Night Newsboys. Anybody remember that? They did a song back then called, "When I was just a little boy, you know that my one and only joy was to listen to that good old rock and roll," so on and so forth. Anyway, this is what Gord wrote. He said, "Recently I went up into the Redwood Hills of Northern California with James and the Good Brothers, a startling troupe of entertainers from Richmond Hill, Canada, accompanied by close friends Michael and Tim of Toronto and Gail from San Francisco. There were 6 of us in the musical safari, traveling in 2 automobiles, armed with 3 acoustic instruments, 1 electric bass, and 1 amplifier. The rain had been falling for 2 days, and we encountered 2 flash floods, several, actually about 100 wandering sheep, and about 16,000 discarded aluminum beer cans. After what seemed like an endless journey, we arrived at a place called Elk. There we found 1 bus, 1 farmhouse, 2 naked children, 3 women, 5 giant redwoods, 1 chainsaw, 5 loaves of fresh bread, and not a single can of beer. And so it was that we covered the last 37 miles to Fort Bragg in 32 minutes flat with 2 J's en route. This was 1970, folks. We drove up Highway 1 for about a half a mile until we reached a decent-looking motor hotel where we took out crash insurance on units 38 and 40 of Building A. Shortly after we arrived in Fort Bragg, we found Cat Mother, owner and custodians of the house we had visited earlier, setting up at the community hall for a benefit dance called the January Stomp, an evening of full-ass rock and roll entertainment. Getting back to our story, the readers should understand that James and the Good Brothers are not a full-ass rock combo. They are, however, a very strong trio of performing musicians dealing in acoustic commodities. Acoustic commodities, yes. Well, la-di-da. Bruce and Brian are twin brothers who like to play country music of the Midland England tradition, i.e. bluegrass and folk. Brian owns a good Martin, which he plays extremely well, and Bruce, that's as far as he got. I'm not making this up, believe me. This is by the hand of Gord.